Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to continue our case studies this afternoon, and we have invited Dayu Yang, who is the CEO of Ecom Operations, who's going to take us through this thing we call direct-to-consumer shipping from China. And I'm going to hand it over to Dayu here. Please take the mic here, Dayu. Thank you.
Hey everyone. You guys ready to get this silent disco started? This is what it feels like. Hey guys, the slides here are not mine. There you go, perfect. All right, so my name is Dayu. Before we get started though, in the audience, I want to understand who here has experienced or utilized direct from China parcel shipping before? Just get a feel for how experienced you guys are. So not much experience. So and I mean parcel shipping, not like freight, not like bulk fulfillment. So okay, all right. So we got a lot to talk about then. Let me see how these slides work. All right. So we're going to talk about direct-to-consumer parcel fulfillment from China. Now, I've been in the supply chain business in the last 10 years or so. And I'm sure a lot of you have been in the business for a long time. And usually when you make supply chain decisions, it's more of an optimization game. Efficiency gains, cost savings, a couple percentages here and there. And it's not bad. I mean, like, hey, if you save a couple percentage on your cost, it's not bad at all. Now, I really believe that utilizing direct from China fulfillment in the right way is not just a small efficiency gain, but it can literally give you a stepwise improvement, and I think sometimes an entire magnitude improvement on your inventory risk, on your ability to launch and scale faster, and on shorter product iteration cycles. Now, you have to use it the right way. So it's not just how to utilize the shipping. It starts even with the production planning itself. And how do you actually rethink how you think about production planning, assuming that you produce in China. This only really works if you produce in China. Don't try to import into China and then ship out of China again. And we're going to give two examples. One is Shein. So these guys aren't our clients, but I'm sure everyone knows Shein. One of the biggest players right now, dominating fast fashion online. And they're huge. They were unstoppable. Between Shein and more recently Temu, they really normalized the idea of direct from China parcel fulfillment to customers around the world. This whole industry, I mean, I'm sure you guys have thought this before Shein and Temu, most of the industry didn't really think that it was a valid option. Maybe it was too slow or inconsistent or just not trustworthy. But now, hundreds of millions or more of customers around the world have purchased from Shein, from Temu, and they're happy about it. Now, Shein has increasing concerns, and so does Temu. So, you know, there is some issues with this model, at least the way that Shein does it. But we're also going to compare it with a current client of ours. She's a Thai influencer who launched her own creator-led beauty brand and fulfilled directly from China to around the world that I'm working very closely with. So we'll also use this as a case study to what I believe is doing it in the right way. All right, so a bit more background about me and why you should listen. I started in the Silicon Valley. I went to Stanford. I was a product manager for a free-to-play mobile gaming company. So free-to-play gaming literally means you're acquiring customers at a loss and try to make it back on LTV. I went to Wharton, got my MBA. I didn't learn that much, to be honest. But it got me a job at BCG, where I consulted for some of the largest retail companies in the world, including a grocery chain, which, by the way, is one of the toughest retail businesses out there. And I created my own business, a smart toy product called Cody, and I got a deal on Shark Tank. And now I run Ecommops. I started Ecommops about 7 years ago, where I saw the opportunity for utilizing direct from China parcel fulfillment for all the reasons I'm going to list out soon. And we fulfilled a lot of orders, supported a lot of Western clients, not Chinese clients, and supported a lot of sales, all shipping directly from China. So there's going to be a bunch of slides coming up. I'm going to breeze through a lot of them. I'm going to leave some time at the end for Q&A. So if you guys have any questions about any of these, just remember which slide, and I'll go back and go a little bit more in detail. All right, so first let's talk about minimizing inventory risk. So the closest comparison at the time to Shein was something like Zara. Zara was the original fast fashion darling. They, at the time at least, they had over 2,000 stores in 88 countries. So I'm sure all of you guys here have experienced local fulfillment and sea freight. What that means is holding a lot of stock, months, sometimes years, especially if you have dead stock. And that means inflexibility, more money at risk. I mean, you just have to do it, or else you sell out, and you don't want to sell out. So you have a lot of cash tied in inventory, and sometimes you have balance sheet issues. Now, when you're talking about China fulfillment, anywhere in China to our Shenzhen fulfillment center takes days. Sometimes actually hours. If your factory is based in Shenzhen, literally it will take 2 hours to get to our warehouse, which means less cash tied up, launching faster, and being able to readjust your replenishment plans based on demand. And I'll talk about each of these in detail. And this is a very simplified picture, but if you ship from China versus air freight versus sea freight, very simple calculation, the much faster lead times, what that enables is your ability to vastly reduce your cash tied up. And a little bit of a side. So what Shein did was very smart. Usually, as a retailer, you don't want to run out of stock. Shein turned that into a positive. Now, for them, obviously, it meant less cash in inventory. But what they created was a sense of urgency. Customers got used to stuff running out. So customers who shop at Shein all the time, they wanted to buy it as soon as possible because they might run out. And they always had a sense of keeping up the trends, launching new products all the time. But usually, for a normal retail business, especially if you're doing physical fulfillment with a storefront, this causes a lot of problems. Way too many SKUs, way too much inventory, and probably a lot of dead stock. Now, faster launches. This is one of the keys to Shein's success. And I do want to emphasize, I think it might be obvious that Shein leveraged China fulfillment from the start, but that's really not all of what made it special, what made it grow so fast. It's a big part of the ability to launch faster, way faster, to around the globe. So what Shein did, and this was crazy when I found out about it, by the way, a company this size, for a new product, they would be ordering batches of 100. I mean, that's minimal risk. I mean, that's no risk for a company this size. And they can do that because they're working closely with their factories, planning accordingly, and getting as small of a batch as possible. Now, it's usually generic products or products that the factory produces already. So they're not new custom designs. So that's part of Shein's model as well. A traditional retailer, even for more generic products, they're going to have to put in much larger orders, thousands, tens of thousands of orders, 2-4 batches per year. I mean, that's just the traditional, especially fashion model. What Shein can do, though, is from the initial ideation to the production and the ability to actually production ready and pre-sale, it takes on average of 2 weeks. Now, again, these are usually generic designs that the factory already makes, or something that's very, very similar. So this is nothing new or nothing custom. However, that's fast. And it takes 1 to 2 days from the factory to their warehouse. And on average, 1 week shipping DTC to consumers. Yes, it's that fast. I mean, it's not 2-day shipping, but it's fast enough. And that means, on average, for a new product, it takes about a month from ideation, literal ideation, by the way, I mean concept, to the customer's door. A traditional brand is going to take 6 to 9 months to get to a storefront, and that might not even move right away. So it might take a year for a customer to actually get it. So that's a magnitude or more. Now, global launches. This is really key for Shein's success. Shein, now they have more local warehouses, more local stores, But at the start, they shipped to 150 countries from one warehouse, just one warehouse. Zara, 2,000 stores and only 88 countries. I mean, that's more than a magnitude. I mean, that's one warehouse location. Now, they expanded a lot more beyond that, but this is what drove Shein's massive growth at the start. Now, anyone who's shipped things globally knows that it's incredibly expensive and inefficient to get your goods from China to, let's say, the US. Now, within the US, it's efficient, but then you want to ship to the UK, Germany, Australia. It's extremely expensive and it's extremely slow, or way too expensive and kind of fast. By shipping directly from China, well, you can launch directly from just one location or a few locations within China. And it's cheaper. Depending on the country, depending on which couriers you're using, more than 50% cheaper sometimes, and faster as well. Now, I wouldn't suggest you ship to 150 countries because not all of them have very reliable shipping lines. But even if you're talking about the top 30, top 40 e-commerce markets, you can do this yourself. And not only that, especially for a new launch, you don't have to invest in local inventory. I mean, just think about that. I mean, anyone who's managed different locations and inventory in another country, I mean, it's a pain in the ass. Sorry, it's a pain. It's a pain. And being able to completely skip that for a new launch means that you can launch just extremely fast. And this is a big part of what fueled Shein's growth. It's not just shipping from China, but it's how do you leverage shipping from China in the right way to maximize the value from it. And actually, here's an example of our client, Pasnita. We knew that the lead time to our warehouse from her factory in Shanghai was 2 days. And we had a production ready date, and 30 days before that, she was able to launch pre-orders before it was ready. And as soon as it was ready, got to our warehouse, she visited, she confirmed all the inventory, and we shipped to 15 countries right away from her pre-orders. So you can do this. I mean, anyone can actually do this. Again, you have to use it the right way to really leverage China shipping. It's not just about having another way to ship to the US. That's feasible as well. But we've had many clients who come in, they were stuck with maybe just US and Canada orders because no other countries they can ship to profitably. They would increase their sales volume by 50% over a couple months. I mean, that is a top-line improvement. That's not just optimization. You can access markets way faster. And so these are the example costs. I mean, this is not completely accurate to a T. And I want to explain a little bit here. For the US, this is comparing a US 3PL cost for a 150-gram product. Now, this calculation also includes an estimate for the air freight cost as well. So keep that in mind. That $7 is not like USPS. It includes some estimates for air freight, for customs, plus pick and pack, plus the last mile. And this is assuming a more economical USPS type of rate, like a $4 rate or something like that. And you guys all know that it could take 3 days for USPS. It could take 5 days, but sometimes it takes 10 days. Or use something like FedEx SmartPost, right? So even for the US, using the express services that takes 5 to 8 days, you're actually cheaper to ship directly from China versus this method of air freight plus direct fulfillment. Now, if you're talking about sea freight, it's going to be cheaper. If you're talking about heavier products, then it starts to shift a little bit, okay? So that's the caveat. But there's a lot of consumer products out there that are light and fast to ship. But international markets, this is where it gets really interesting. The UK, again, the same kind of calculation. You have to get freight to the UK, to the US in the first place, and then shipping it to the UK. And this is actually using economy services. So shipping to the UK, shipping in Germany, you're going to take like 1 to 3 weeks using the cheapest methods. And that's still going to be twice as expensive as just shipping directly from China anyways. And you completely skip the freight leg. So this is where it gets really, really interesting when you think about international expansion. And again, even for within the US, the costs are not bad. And global scaling aside, this is something a lot of people don't know, but more and more platforms are actually supporting China shipping lines. Amazon FBM. I mean, these are all China shipping lines. They're not all great, but these are all approved shipping lines that FBM can support. Lazada, Shopee, there's integrations with all of them. And what that means is that, I mean, even if you're a D2C brand, I always recommend our clients to, hey, get on Amazon, go omnichannel, right? If you sell on FBA, you guys know the pain of selling out, you get delisted, or you can't search for it anymore, which just kills your SEO juice, right? Some people don't know that you can actually put an FBM listing piggybacking on the same ASIN, and you can ship it from China, so it keeps that listing up. Maybe people won't buy from it, but it doesn't matter. You keep your listing up, you keep your 30 4-star reviews up, and that provides the ability for that to continue to provide the social proof that a good Amazon listing and reviews does. All right, so this is where it gets really interesting. It's not even just about where you're sending things, but if you take a step back and actually think about or rethink how you plan your production to leverage the much shorter lead times. Okay, so who has ever seen a completely accurate sales forecast? Anyone? I have never in my entire career. I've never even gotten lucky, like not even close. It just doesn't happen, right? That's the nature of this business. And especially if you're talking about D2C. I mean, any kind of retail business where demand is uncertain, you're gonna have this problem. And this problem is more severe, and it's more costly the longer your lead times are. So this is what Shein did. They could order at first, let's say 100 in a batch. If it doesn't work, they just kill it. They don't need to scale it at all. If it does work though, because of that total lead time, and this is including production, is maybe 10 days. And the factory is willing to work with them on smaller batches. So they can scale up rapidly. I mean, both in terms of minimizing risk when they scale up, but also the ability to avoid sellouts of a fast-selling SKU because they can scale up so rapidly. And, well, so this is one class I did kind of learn about in my business school. This idea of like, so previously this idea of having a pull strategy of production planning, it was theoretical. It was supposed to be ideal. Normally holding local inventory is made to stock. Production is approximated, you estimate it, you base it on anticipation, inventory levels have to be high where you sell out, and there's usually waste. Now, with this China fulfillment model, and by the way, I will be clear, it's not just shipping from China. It's the short lead times that you get from having your factory so close and available to your fulfillment center. Now, if you have a US factory, then definitely use a US fulfillment center and you're gonna unlock that as well. But I have a feeling that most of you guys don't have a US factory. Production is a lot more precise, or it can be. It's based on actual consumption. Inventories are low and waste is actually reduced. Now, this only works if you plan for it this way, okay? We have many new clients who move over to this model and they're still planning on a quarterly basis. They're still planning a container at a time. You're not getting all the benefits unless you're actually rethinking how you plan your production. I think it's the same thing. But not only that, with this, and this is where we're using the Pasanita skincare brand as an example, you can actually even get deeper. If you evaluate any kind of product, especially ones with different components, you're gonna have different costs and different lead times for each component. So using this as an example, and you guys probably realize it, like a lot of time, the longest lead time is often the cheapest component. In this case, the packaging and the tubes, 45 days lead time. And they're the cheapest cost in the BOM. Material lead time is 23 days. Production lead time, actually, like production takes like hours, you know? You do 5,000, 10,000 in a single production run, right? but we still estimate 5-7 days or so with all the QC and everything like that. So what it allows us to do is, let's say we can just pre-purchase 50,000 units worth of materials. Actually, we can even go more crazy and just separate packaging and raw materials, but you get the point. And what that does is that allows you to get some of the quantity breaks at that level, but you can negotiate, hey, we're going to pay down 10, 50% of COGS, lower than the typical 30% deposit that you might see. And you can make batches at a time. So after the initial 1 month long lead time, on week 5, you start producing. And let's say MOQ is 5,000. So you can't produce less than that, but you can produce more. So 1 week you produce 5,000. Okay, demand goes up 6,000, a little bit down, 5,600, 10,000, 20,000, until you use up and you restart. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Lower average cost than if you're ordering 5,000 at a time. Way better cash flow, and you can adjust your production based on demand. And the more complicated your product is, actually, skincare is a relatively simple type of product. Electronics, for example, you have a lot of components. Back when I was making the smart toy product, it was also going through the chipset shortage. The chipset lead time was like 2.5 months. So we purchased 20,000 chipsets just in storage, and we're making 5,000 batches at a time. And that completely changed how we plan for the lead time. But this is only really possible, though, if you're actually able to replenish on a more regular basis. If you're sending containers on the boat every quarter, you can kind of do this at enough scale, but it doesn't work the same way. Faster product iterations. So normal products, you don't improve them you usually improve them every year, every 2 years, if that. Now, part of it is complexity. I mean, iPhones are complex, MacBooks are complex, so that's not all it, right? But part of it is also because when you have long freight times, when your production cycle, planning cycle is on a yearly basis, you can't really do more than that. You can't do faster than that. What Shein did, though, was, first of all, they had a big network of suppliers. At first, they were producing the factory's own designs. Generic products that Shein decided that would sell well in the international market. They measured everything. They measured performance. And once they realized the product would sell well, or there were things that they could do to improve the product, they would start to buy more inventory, and they would start producing then to their specifications. They would start improving it. And that's exactly what our client did. Once the body scrub first launched, we realized there was an issue with the cap. It's a body scrub product, so that sometimes salt would get in the cap and it wouldn't close correctly. And then we started hearing about customers wanting to have a body lotion pairing. And now we're doing all of this within 2 months after launch. And we have many clients who, actually one of our biggest clients, they worked with us for 2 years. They've already had 7 product iterations. Now, they don't have to be huge. Like, you're not making Gen 2, Gen 3. The zipper sucks. Okay, next batch, replace it. Something wrong with this material. Next batch, change it. The battery sucks. Okay, change the battery. All this stuff, if you know what you're doing, it's all simple stuff. You don't need to wait a year. You don't need to wait 2 years. You can do it right away. But again, this only really works if you can ship from China. All right, so wrapping up here, some tips. Shein's products are not the best quality. There's already concerns about labor and everything like that. But, I mean, here, I imagine most of you have produced from China before. There's good factories in China. Like the factory that my client works with, they produce for Dior, Estee Lauder. Like, there's good factories in China. I mean, iPhones are made in China. So work with good factories. Base your fulfillment center in Shenzhen, not Hong Kong. The most efficient airlines and couriers come out of Hong Kong, but it's actually way more efficient for trucks to go to Hong Kong and then ship out. Oh, so this is a big one. You don't need to fill up containers to ship domestically to China. This is one of the things that, like, our clients who are used to the traditional model, that they're always trying to, like, fill up a container, putting in pallets. Like, no. everyone's been talking about Uber for freight for a long time. Uber for freight exists in China right now. It's called Hualala. You open up an app and you call within hours the exact size van or truck that you actually need to ship 500 units. So make sure that you actually use optimal methods for domestic shipping. Use the right shipping lines. I won't go into too much detail here, but I recommend Union Express, CNN, CNE, 4PX, and UBI, not China Post. And how a courier like this works is that from the pick and pack, takes about 24 hours to consolidate, clear clearance, get to Hong Kong from Shenzhen. A plane doesn't take that long. Takes like half a day. Clear in the process, and then inject into the last mile. So with this, in most countries around the world, you're getting consistent 4 to 10 day delivery straight to your customers. Now, set clear shipping expectations, right? So standard 4 to 7 business days. That's how long it takes. Don't say it takes 2 days. Don't say nothing. 4 to 7 business days for a product that people want is not bad. Understand the difference between first mile and last mile. So Union Express, for example, they have this first mile tracking number. This is going to show you everything, including from China, every single scan. Extremely detailed, way more detailed than USPS, by the way. And this is a similar USPS tracking as well. It starts with shipping label created, awaiting a label, and a few days later, it starts updating. Now, there's pros and cons to each. And in the interest of time, I won't go through all of them, there's pros and cons to each. Now, Shein has actually expanded to local warehousing, but only for top performing SKUs. And I'm not going to go here rah-rah and saying, hey, China fulfillment solves all your problems. Hybrid fulfillment, having local warehouses supplementing with China fulfillment for international, for out of stock, for new launches. This is the optimal model for the future. Oh, this is a big one. Everyone's been talking about the changes to the de minimis ruling. Don't rely on duty or tax loopholes. So before the updated ruling or the updated announcement, when you ship to the EU, you used to be able to go VAT free if you declare your goods at under 22 euros. That completely changed. And now there's VAT on everything, shipping from outside the EU to the EU. So this loophole was something that people were using to not have to pay VAT. They closed this, but businesses still survived because everyone knows that you have to pay VAT. I won't talk about that in that much detail. So right now, you can clear your parcel scot-free. No duties, no extensive custom clearance if your parcel is under $800 in declared value, of import value. Now, they're supposedly trying to close this loophole, and partly because of Shein, partly because of politics as well. So nothing has been announced yet. And I'll share some links at the end of what the actual announcement actually is. Now, what are they trying to do? They're trying to prevent stuff like fentanyl, well, as they say. Now, part of it is politics as well, right? I'm not going to get into politics right now, but like Trump actually has much more extreme measures proposed. So Biden's announcement right now is actually a much more mild version of that. But it's all politics. It's before the elections. And no one knows exactly what's going to happen until after the elections. And honestly, I think a lot of people don't even think that it's going to be actually enacted. So does this actually kill your advantage? Are you importing illegal stuff? Yeah, I mean, it should kill your business. Yes. Don't sell fentanyl. Don't sell drugs. Don't sell counterfeit goods. Does your model depend on duty savings? Okay, well, maybe. But like, don't build a business depending on like a 25% tariff saving on your product goods or product costs. Are you doing everything legit? Well, I really believe that what this will do is actually going to filter out the bad actors. It's going to filter out the people who are actually abusing this loophole. So if you're selling a brand and doing things legitimate, then I actually think it's going to be a net positive for you in the long term. And a quick calculation, look, if your product cost is $2.50, which is, by the way, around the COGS of the skincare product, if you add on a 25% tariff, I mean, It's like nothing. It's like nothing. I mean, we sell this product for like $30. Like, it doesn't really matter. I mean, again, don't depend on this loophole. Now, do your own calculations, though. If your product COGS are like $50 and you sell it for like $100, well, first of all, don't do that. You won't make money. But then that might affect you. So plan for the worst case. The other thing is that make sure you actually navigate the duties in a legitimate way. Because one of the things they're trying to do is to start to catch any couriers, any importers who are misclassifying HS codes, for example. So make sure that you do that correctly. Make sure that you're using the right codes. There's some leeway, obviously, but stay within the usual bounds of normal imports. And include the worst case. Include potential duties, and include that in your models. If you can't make money, then it's not going to work. Don't use China fulfillment. But I think for a lot of products, for most products, you're going to see that you're still going to make money, and this doesn't really change anything because all the other benefits that we talked about far outweighs it. Now, so here's some links here. So this is the official White House fact sheet. I think these QR codes work. You could try it. And then this tool right here is for querying your HS code. So you can find your HS code. You can find what the duties might be. And then this third tool right here is the ability to check the if your product has additional tariffs that Trump or the U.S. government has enacted to protect additional tariffs of up to 25% on goods from China. All right. So I'll leave this here for now. And we have 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes. Any questions? I'm happy to go back to one of these slides as well. No questions? Yes.
How does this model work if your business is like subscription based?
It works the same, but maybe even better, actually. So now, it doesn't really matter because it's all just shipping the products. And actually, subscription-based products, they actually work maybe even better because then, as long as you're shipping around the same time and arriving the same time, then the speed of shipping doesn't even matter. As a matter of fact, if you're shipping a subscription model, as long as you're kind of good about the expectations about when it's going to arrive on a monthly basis, you can actually even use cheaper shipping lines. Because then there's not as much pressure to get there in 5 to 8 days. You can use slightly cheaper lines that get there in maybe 2 weeks, but consistently slow. And you send it out the same date, then typically it's going to arrive consistently around the same date as well. So yeah. But one thing to note though is that don't do supplements. A lot of subscriptions are like maybe supplements. Supplements you can't ship from China. Anything that is more controlled by the FDA, supplements, medicines, anything that looks like a supplement, white powders, you can't do that. But yeah, subscription models are actually great for this model. Anyone else?
I can ask you a question then.
Oh, of course.
Okay. You said the lead time is around 4 to 7 days, you're saying. What is the difference between 4 and C if you're in West Coast or you're the East Coast, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. So if you're in LA, for example, on average, you're probably going to get it in 4 to 5 days because there are actually routing warehouses around the US, depending on the courier that you use. LA, Jersey, Chicago, Dallas. So if you're around the big metros, it's actually going to be faster. And actually, that brings up a really good point. Typically speaking, the slower lead times are going to be more rural areas. They're going to be areas where USPS naturally is going to take longer anyways. And that's probably exactly why, even though on average, we're going to see sometimes 8 days, 10 days to the US, very rarely do we actually get a lot of complaints. Again, set the right expectations. But someone in the middle of nowhere in Iowa, sorry if you guys are from the Midwest, is probably used to 7-day shipping from USPS anyways. Yeah. Oh, and one of these things about, one of the benefits about these couriers is that they're very good at routing correctly, or just routing optimally to the right warehouse. And actually, one thing that has been innovation in these couriers as well is that for at least the more economical, efficient lines, they don't actually use one courier. They don't stick with USPS. They actually use a range of different couriers in the US and different countries, depending on what's more optimal for the routing itself.
I have a quick question. Did you say that this only works if the country of origin is China?
Well, your goods have to be in China,
Okay.
so you have to get it there somehow.
Okay.
Now, importing into China is a pain. So try to avoid that. But if you can, then it works. So for example, I mean, if you have your goods produced in Bangladesh or Vietnam, if you go through the hurdles of being able to import into China, then it's not a problem at all.
Okay. Because we are a marketplace and we get goods from China sellers that will
Mhm.
eventually come to US buyers.
Mhm.
So just curious if we're a candidate for this or if it's only people who are manufacturing themselves.
As long as your products are in China, getting to China somehow.
Okay.
Yeah, that somehow is tricky, but if you don't make it in
They're
China.
there, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else? Cool. Oh,
Okay, yeah.
Sorry if I might have missed this, but what did you say is the size of the shipments that this works with?
well, it's consumer-sized packages. The heavier that the weight is, then it increases linearly because it utilizes air freight as a first leg. So if it gets too heavy, it's going to get too expensive. So usually the sweet spot is something like under a couple kilograms. But
And,
lower
and
the
this
better,
is
yeah.
going directly from China, like D2C to somebody's.
Oh yeah.
That's what we're saying, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So let me see this slide.
So instead of going to my warehouse, I would be shipping direct from China straight to customer.
Exactly.
That's
So here's our Shenzhen warehouse right here, China. Our courier Unit Express takes some time, consolidates it, routes it through their Shenzhen warehouse, gets on a truck to Hong Kong. And yeah, like once it gets on a plane, planes don't take that long. And they book daily air freight to various different locations. Actually, the fastest line is usually to the UK. I've seen to the UK as fast as 2.5 days. It's a rare occasion, right? But I mean, people ask like, how is that possible? Like, why is that not possible? It takes a few hours to drive to Hong Kong, get on the next plane. The plane to London, I don't know, 10 hours. I forget exactly, but not that long. And then London logistics is very, very fast. So if you're in London, it'll just get there the next day. So 2.5 days. Very
And the
rarely.
warehouses will hold goods, and you.
So they're routing warehouses. I mean, they're specialized in efficient routing. So technically, in these routing warehouses, they don't really hold any goods.
Right.
They're just all optimized for fast processing and fast clearing as well. And also, customs clearing is important too because it just clears. It clears on a parcel basis, but on the way. So it's not bulk custom clearing as well. And that's what makes it very efficient as well. And that also actually it addresses. I mean, so this method is DDP, by the way. So if you're using DHL Express, for example, like you're gonna maybe get stuck in customs and you have your customer pay duties. But this is actually DDP because of this method. They import it and they direct inject, and that makes it so efficient. Yeah, it creates an opportunity for some tax loopholes, which we won't talk about too much, but don't depend on tax loopholes.
I had another question too because I didn't quite. I don't know if you covered that. But what is the consumer interface you provide? So if the consumer wants to locate the package, what kind of interface do they provide?
So you could just provide the last mile tracking, like this. This is the same parcel. This is what. So if you use the first mile, this is the China tracking. And then you use something like 17 track after ship, and this shows all the step-by-step scans from China. Most of our clients, they like to use this because it shows all the detail. And our clients realize most people don't care that it's from China. They know it's produced in China anyways. They care more about it's arriving on time and it updates. But if you want to give the USPS number, this is the last mile for the same parcel. So there's no interface required. Now, you're using some kind of platform, Shopify, whatever, your custom platform, and we just pass on the tracking numbers. So whatever you use to display the tracking numbers, that's exactly the same experience, regardless of what shipping locally or shipping from China. Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Hi, kind of just to add to Dayu's point, because we worked with Dayu with Ecommops before, and with the with the kind of what the customer sees, like there's a lot of softwares now that will actually like hide the Chinese cities. So you can use something like Parcel Panel and Aftersell, and they will actually hide the names of the Chinese cities, so the customer won't even see that it's from China. And kind of to further the point, I believe that when the customer gets the package, it doesn't have like UnExpress or like the Chinese packaging on it. It actually says like USPS. So like other than it taking maybe a little bit longer, like there's not really an indicator that it is coming from China.
Yeah, it's they slap a USPS label right over it, and then technically, I guess you're not even representing that it's from locally because it actually hits a U.S. warehouse first, technically. I mean, actually, it's true, right? You're actually shipping from the exact U.S. location that Parcel Panel or that app might show that it's from, and in that way, it's not that different than if you're in a rush and you have to like ship 1,000 units air freight, and then immediately have to inject it into the system. It works like that, except you don't have to manage that initial portion, and it's on a parcel by parcel basis and much more efficient. Yeah. All good?
Just thought of another thing. Do you have any capacity limitations like the big carriers do?
As in like per parcel?
Yeah, like you can only intake like 100 or 100,000 a day or something
Oh,
along those lines.
no, I mean, we don't.
Okay.
So the great thing about Shenzhen, by the way, where we're based, is that it's extremely easy to ramp up on capacity. Right now we have 5 warehouses. So warehouses in Shenzhen, like they're not massive, right? But they're like more built for like, I mean, they're smaller, kind of medium-sized warehouses, and there's a lot of vacancy around us as well. The economy in China is kind of bad. So if we want more space, we could just get a new lease. If we want more labor, and that's usually the hard thing about local fulfillment, is in China, if you want more labor, we can ramp up the next day. There's a lot of factory workers factory work is a lot more variable. So there's constant supplies of available labor that we could just ramp up right away. That might change in the future, but right now it's very easy to ramp up. So no capacity constraints.
Not for air freight capacity either?
Well, if you max out that capacity, that's probably a good problem to have, I would say, because I mean they book air freight on the open market, and there's plenty of available air freight right now. During COVID, it was different, but it's not COVID anymore, thankfully. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Thank you, Dayu.
Oh, one more.
What about Lunar New Year, though?
Oh, either pause for a bit or ship some goods to the U.S. And this is why hybrid fulfillment model, like, really is probably the most ideal. Now, couriers don't take off for the entire month. Some factories take off for a month, maybe more. Couriers and our fulfillment warehouse, we work harder than that. We might take 7 days off. So the actual disruption is not that bad. And especially it's normally a slow period as well. It makes Valentine's Day sales usually very awkward. But other than that, it's usually a slow period. Set customer expectations. Don't push your ads as much. Have some local inventory. And this probably applies peak season as well, like Christmas sales, right? There's going to be a cutoff. It's not going to arrive if you have a Christmas sale and you probably don't want to ship from China after December 12th or so. And then you ship the last week or so from a US fulfillment center because you definitely don't want toys to be delayed for Christmas. Okay. All right, I think I'm on time. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Dayu.
Thank you guys.